So if you're really interested in how to take out the EGR valve in 1.6 HDI engines and thoroughly clean it, so this is a guide how to do that. Remove all the pipes, take out the EGR valve, clean it, take it completely apart, clean it, then putting everything back together. So if you want to do that, stay tuned. So the EGR valve is really located underneath the filter box, the air filter box. So really all these pipes, the air pipes to the turbo and these air pipes needs to be taken out. It's not really that difficult, and then the air filter box removed, and then there is an access to the EGR valve. So first we start with these pipes. So that one is fairly simple. It's basically a twist here and pull. So basically you twist that and pull it out. I filed those, so it's slightly easier on mine, to be more difficult on yours. So the two catches on that pipe, so it basically needs to be rotated that way and then taken out. So you rotate, may potentially be difficult, and then you take it out. So the two catches here, so it basically rotated that way, two catches to go in. Next one is that air pipe. So I generally have a zip tie, so it doesn't really rattle that much. It's pretty stable, so I have to actually cut it. So this, there is a catch underneath, I'll show it. So this has to be pushed that side in order to unclick, and there is a catch on this pipe, so basically a simple release, and then I hold it somewhere else and then just push it until it clicks. And here at the end it's a bit, basically remove it. So here is the catch, so this really stays like that. So here is the catch, this rubber grommet, so basically you have to pull it that direction. So here are a few catches, so these two kind of protruding plastic, and that one, so it's somewhat wiggling, and then it could be taken out. Of course we have to remove the cover. It's basically just a pull. Therefore plastic things is basically pull and then click on. So the next thing is really to remove the air pipe to the turbo, and this is one bolt that needs to be undone, and then another one here, and then and the crankcase breather. I have to be careful to pull it out. So undoing these two bolts. So undoing these two bolts is a simple screwdriver until it kind of the bracket here moves freely. Same thing with that one, until it kind of moves freely. So forgot to say, one needs to remove the MAF sensor connection. So basically one just unclips it here and pulls it out. So let me see. So basically unclip it like that and then pull. It's a bit. Clip it like that and then pull, and can be really taken out and put somewhere else. So not to be in the way. So this is the crankcase breather, and this is the air filter piping. So the two plastic clips, so one is underneath, it can't quite be seen, one is underneath and one here. So generally what I do, I'll have a kind of bigger shot, so I really put kind of a screwdriver and slightly push it, and one underneath and with a screwdriver like that, so this doesn't really break, otherwise this only holds. So there is I kind of have it half broken here, so one has to be rather careful with that one. So once we've removed the MAF sensor, next thing is to undo really this. So there is one underneath, so I'm really will have the screwdriver underneath, so kind of to pull it like that, and I'll hold my finger on that one, so I can just slightly, only slightly push it that direction. and that's only slightly out, just on top. So the next thing is to really push the turbo here, and that is kind of, this is out. So next thing is just to push it slightly that direction. That's it, that's out. And next thing is basically to undo it from the filter here, and there is no easy way. Basically just undo it, unclip it like that. There has been some oil coming from the crankcase breather, but that's kind of alright. So there has been a bit of oil. So one thing I forgot to say, I mean, generally this O-ring, you can see my video here how to basically fix oil dripping from this crankcase breather, and generally pulls down there, so there will be quite a bit of oil there, and this will be also quite a bit of oily. So see that video and see how you replace this with a fatter O-ring, and this makes a really good seal, and the PCV valve will work correctly. So next thing is to remove the airbox. So the two grommets, one here and one underneath here, and there is not really an easy way to remove that. Well, there is an easy way, but it's basically what I would do. I'll put my hand underneath the airbox and basically hold it here. Don't put your hand too much because you touch the MAF sensor. Hold it here and just basically lift it. Two grommets and the two kind of rubber grommets underneath, so that's the only way. I know for a lot of people, so mine is 1.6 HDI Peugeot partner, and there's a lot of space. I don't really need to remove plastic covers here and there, but if you need, you may need to remove quite a few of the scuttles here and covers, but I don't really have access to one of these, so I can only show on mine. So basically I'll put my hand in it underneath and just basically lift it, and that's it. You have to be careful. And well, that is the airbox completely taken out, the MAF sensor here. That's why I said do not really put your hand too much in there. So if you really wanna, I have another video that will come up here, how you can really make this not, let me put it down there somewhere, how to make the airbox not rattle. Check out this video, should be around here. There are a few grommets and a few things that you could replace, and it will be really quite quiet. So next thing is to really put some aluminium foil on the turbo and the crankcase breather, just so no really debris can come in, especially in the turbo. So I put just aluminium foil just on top of it. So here is the EGR valve. Let me put some light on. So that's the EGR valve, and I'll put some more light. So there is one bolt here, so like two bolts like that, and I'll put more light and you'll be able to see it. But two more bolts, so you can take it out without really removing anything. But well, for filming purposes it will be easier to remove the filter, and I'm replacing the fuel filter as well. So I'll remove the filter and the bracket as well here, so this could be shown how exactly the EGR valve is removed. So the next thing is to undo the electric plug for the filter. So this is for the heater plug. So basically it's same as the MAF sensor. Basically it's you just stick your finger and pull this plug, and this comes out. Basically it's pulling that thing, and this is out. So this vacuum pipe, just to put it out of the way somewhere. So the next, the two lines, so the fuel line in and out, the two fuel lines. I'm not too sure which is in. I think this is in, this is out. So I've labeled the 1 and 2, so not to really mess them up. So in order to remove this line is basically the two plugs, so you squeeze this side and this pulls out that way, and because it's fuel line, so there will be some fuel, so it might spray, so I'll put some tissue around here, because it probably will spray a bit of fuel. So it's basically pushing these two tabs and pushing that side and then pulling, and it should come out fairly easy. There we go. I can see fuel coming back. So what I'll actually do, I'll put aluminum foil on that, so there's not really any chance of debris going in the fuel lines. So next is the second one, and I'll move the camera so there will be slightly better view on that one. And I'll put some tissue as well, and just around it, because this probably the same thing. It might spray a bit of diesel, a bit of fuel. Let me move it down here. So this is the second line for the filter, and basically it's the same squeeze plug, but that's really tight. So I basically have a screwdriver and leverage like that and push it from that side. I can push with one finger. So let me put some tissue around, because that might leak a bit. So basically it's the screwdriver here, leverage and basically push, and it should come out. There we go. Let's remove the tissue. So that's the fuel line, so I'll put some foil as well on that one, just not to get debris inside. So next thing is this thing here. I have a really a plug for the I have a fuel sensor or water in diesel sensor. So if you really want to know how I've installed this, you can see this video here. So you have to unplug it as well. Let me see, I'm not too sure, probably have to take it out and then unplug it. I'll unplug it after. So basically for the filter it's basically squeezing this tab here, that side, and basically lifting it. So they won't, because it will be full of fuel, so there might be a bit of a spillage, so I'll put some tissue down there. So basically it's again this tab, so basically pull this tab here and just lift the filter. So I have a connection there, so that might be the water in diesel sensor is still connected, so I'm not too sure how to unplug it. I mean, I can't quite see it. Yeah, well, it's basically the same connection, so I unplugged it, so that's the connection. I'll show it later on how it is, but now it's pretty easy, so I'll really try to hold it as level as possible. So basically squeeze this and just lift it outside, not to spill that much. So this is the connection for my fuel in diesel sensor. Is basically the same, so it's basically the same plug. It has this tab that one pulls and it's taken out. So so that's the fuel filter with the heater plug that basically if it's too cold it heats the diesel, so it can go along. So it's Delphi HDF 939, that's what I use for my filter. So next is really to undo this bracket, this bracket for the fuel filter. So the three balls here, and here. I mean, you don't need to do that. I mean, the EGR valve is here at the back, but it's a bit easier and doesn't really cost that much to remove that one. So 3 bolts, I think that's an 8mm. So next is basically this bracket just lifts out. This is the bracket for the fuel filter. And that's it, really. Now we have a pretty good view of the EGR valve, because it's much easier to do it, to show it that way than with this bracket. You don't have been able to see much. So this is the EGR valve here. So there is this small, I'm not too sure if you can see, there is a small aluminium gasket, well, steel probably, not aluminium gasket in between here. So generally people put this blanking plate, so this is really, instead of that aluminum which has a hole and you see it, they generally put a blanking tape there. So the next thing is to really unplug the EGR valve. Is the same thing, so you push this side like this thing, and this unclips, and just to move these cables away slightly, and that's the EGR valve. So the two bolts from this side, so I'll really put the camera somewhere here so you can be able to see it. Two bolts here and a clamp, that side. So the clamp that is between the EGR valve and the intercooler, there is a small intercooler for the EGR valve to reduce the temperature of the gases. It looks like this. This is the original clamp, and I've already replaced it, and I'll show it later when I remove it. I already replaced it, but this is the clamp, slightly misshapen here. So you really, it's quite difficult to have a tool like with a screwdriver to undo that clip. So one really needs a tool like that. So this is kind of draper, and it's on the top, is like that. Looks like that. So basically you can let me hold it properly. So you can, these teeth kind of there can squeeze in there and release the clamp, and then it kind of, you undo it like that, and then I think turning it around it can put it back together. But this needs to be slightly hammered on top to make a good contact, because I've got a gap in there. There shouldn't be this gap. So this is how you do it. So if you really want to see how this in action, you can see it in my previous video where there is no talking, but I've undone it there. So I've replaced it with this particular clamp, 16283J, that is actually a screwed. So this is from the side. So this is the EGR valve. So this is the clamp between the intercooler and the EGR valve. So this is the clamp, and I've replaced it really with this. You can find all the details underneath in the description what I've replaced it with. It's much easier. So basically a screwdriver you can undo that clamp rather than the other with a squeezing thing. Next to undo, it's basically just a screwdriver. It's much easier than a tool. And basically turn it and kind of unscrews. There we go. It's already kind of undone, and I'm doing it with one hand, so it's a bit difficult to see. And there you go. That's this clamp, and I think I can completely undo it. So then I can kind of squeeze it out. Camera is shaking a bit. So one can kind of undo this clamp. It's a small gasket, like I don't want to lose it. But basically you put this aside, and then I can actually clamp it back together. Well, it could stay like that. Hopefully I won't lose this. Really try to screw it in. So that's keeping, this bracket's keeping the intercooler and the EGR valve. So next thing is really to the two bolts that's holding the EGR valve, that bolt, and let me see where the other one is, and another bolt down here actually, so it's a bit stuck inside. So there is one here, it's an 8mm bolt, so it's fairly long, goes inside. So one bolt here and another one, let me see if this is visible, not quite, maybe a bit more light. So the EGR valve, so the bolt really, it's down here, so that's where my finger is here. Let me point. So that's the other bolt that goes from there and connects here. So this is really this is a bit tight because this bolt here, because quite a few pipes. So really have a kind of a small tool that can squeeze into these places and undo this 8mm bolts. So when undoing the EGR valve, hold with when you've done it completely, hold this gasket here, not to drop somewhere in the agent. So it has a kind of a protrusion here, so one can kind of hold it there. So that bolt, the first one is fairly easy to undo with the ratchet thing. Let me hold it. It's fairly easy to undo, and then you can kind of undo it by hand. So I'm not really, well, let's undo this bolt completely. I mean, this is my replacement EGR valve, so the description are in the all the components in the description of the video. And when I was last time undoing this, this was like, this EGR valve has been there for a year and a half, and I'll see how much carbon has been built. So I really rounded these bolts, and I ordered new ones, and they're in the description if you want to really check out and buy new bolts, because they're fairly long. These bolts, a bit weird. So I really, last time I rounded this one. So the next bolt with these two, because there is not really much space, and this is fairly flimsy. I'm trying to fairly flimsy, doesn't hold. So I'll try to hold it, not to lose it somewhere down in the engine. So the bolt is down here. And then that's it. I mean, this went fairly easy, actually, I have to say. This bolt was not even tight, surprising, so probably didn't. So yeah, the EGR valve started moving slightly. Yeah, that bolt is very awkward, actually, but let's give it another go. Where is the bolt? Look here. Yeah, this probably, it's easy to rotate by hand now, so it needs really 2 turns. Yeah, it's rotating fine. So with one finger here, I'm holding this gasket because I don't really want to lose this gasket. And this bolt I'm not gonna take out. I'll take it all together with the EGR valve. So I'll hold it with 2 small fingers. This gasket here. So I'll hold it with like that, so I don't really lose it. Probably somewhere in the engine, but you can take it after. So a bit awkward, this bolt, but it's coming out. So there we go. So hold really with 2 hands. So there we go. That's the gasket I was holding like that. And this is the EGR valve. I mean, it's actually not too bad. This is the bolt at the back that was I was undoing. Let me take it out more. I'll hold it like that. So these are the do it like that. See, these are the 2 bolts. That's really the awkward one, and then another. So that's the EGR valve out of the car. Looks like that. That's the electronic part, and this is the shaft there that closes and opens. So my camera really cut out because there wasn't enough battery, but it's not really too bad. I mean, this been a year and a half, and I think you can see the shaft there, perhaps, probably not. It's been like a year and a half, so it's not really too badly clocked. So let me see Yeah, perhaps you can say so. So it's not really too badly clocked. Let me finger. Well, there's quite a bit of carbon, and it's pretty dry carbon. It's not really oily carbon, so that's actually quite good. Let me see here. Well, there is quite a bit of carbon. So the next thing is really to clean it. So we need to really separate. And I have a kind of something because it will be black stuff everywhere. So I put something to kind of protect floors and so on. So next thing is to undo these 3 bolts here and basically take out this top part, so then we can clean the bottom part. So this is really a replacement valve. It's not my original valve. So the replacement valve, just proper bolts. These are somewhat star-shaped bolts, and I've got some tool. I think it's E7 or E6. E7, like a star-shaped E7. That what works for that one. So this for this one, but for the others might be different. So I mean, it's fairly easy. It's just undo the bolts. I mean, they might be rather tight, these bolts, depending on the condition of the EGR valve. I mean, my previous one, the original one, these bolts I couldn't really undo. I broke like 3 bits of these, and I really completely I couldn't really open it to clean it. So basically I'll hold it and then undo them by hand. So the bolt's taken out. So this how it is. This bolts to the intercooler, this bolts to the engine, and this is that side, just to kind of remember how it is, because there is a specific way to put it back together. I mean, I have a video how to put it back together, but I'll show it again, because apparently this should be the ultimate video. So I'll show all the different bits that I've done. So basically just pulling. I already done it, but this really sometimes from the carbon and so on gets really clogged inside, and it's very difficult to pull. But eventually with wiggling out, you can take it out. So yeah, well, there is quite a bit of carbon kind of everywhere. So this is 1.5 years, a bit more than 1.5 years, 1.1 year and 8 months. So there is quite a bit of carbon, and inside, let me shine, there is quite a bit of a, I think it's a dry, it's basically, let me shine, it's quite a bit of dry carbon as well. So we have to clean that one. So there is a shaft inside, so hopefully it's visible. So there is a shaft. This really can it stays in that position, but if one pulls it slightly, it kind of can this actually can rotate. I think that's the position that it has to kind of stay in. But there is a shaft inside, so, and with a channel. So this has to really very freely rotate, and when you, so you, I'll put it with a finger and then leave it, and that really moves the shaft inside the actual valve open and close. So this is closed, this is open. So bottom is, when this is to the bottom, it's closed, and when this is to the top, it's open. It should really, from vibration, should come down, but there is a bit of a carbon, quite a bit of carbon build up here on the side and everywhere there, so it doesn't really move that freely. So it's a good time to actually clean it. So I intend to really clean it every 2 years or so. So I fiddled around to see how the valve can be better visible. So I really hope this is visible under the camera there. So the valve, so if I put it up, so the valve closes, and I put it down, the valve opens, so closes and opens. So there is some movement there, I think can be seen, hopefully can be seen on the camera. I'm not entirely sure actually. Hopefully that's visible there. Okay, so that's it. Now cleaning up everything. So one thing to say, I'll take this apart as well to clean that bit. This should really freely rotate. So when you hold it and release it, it should come back. There is a bit of a movement in mine. There is a bit of a catch, but that's probably alright. So it should really rotate like that freely. There is a spring inside that I'll open to clean if I can, but this also has to be quite clean. Next thing for this one, not really. So I'll be cleaning it with this Wins carb cleaner or carburetor cleaner. But you can use a EGR valve cleaner or any carb cleaner, and I'll have in the description where you can get this one, or EGR cleaner is the same. So some people really, so I'm using a toothbrush, so spray inside, use a toothbrush, so I'll clean it in a while. But one thing some people really advise is to put oven cleaner inside, and this will certainly clean it extremely well. The oven cleaner will make it like brand new, but oven cleaner it's either sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide, and they really react with the aluminium from the EGR valve, so we'll eat it. So if you want to do that with oven cleaner, we have to be really quick, wash it with water very quick, so not to really eat up. So you can see what happens if you put aluminium in sodium and potassium hydroxide here. So don't do that. I don't really advise it. Use a carburetor cleaner. It's easier and it's safer. So really clean it fairly well. I mean, how shiny it is. So I also, with soapy water under the, I spent probably about half hour, but it's pretty clean. Let me shine the torch. I mean, it's pretty clean inside. Well, I couldn't really reach towards the end, the shaft. I mean, probably next time I'll buy some, not just a toothbrush, but something else that can reach kind of in between there. So because it's a lot of water and stuff, so so let's see how this operates. So you see how easy it is to slide down and up. So that's actually the action. So I've taken out the gasket. I'll put it later, so I'll wash that one as well. Yeah, so that's it. I will leave it to dry for a couple of hours, probably on the radiator, just to heat up, to evaporate all the water. But next thing is to do this. So next thing is to really undo the top part. I mean, you don't need to, but just in case you want to undo it. So there are 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's basically. And so basically I already broke, there was a tab here that you kind of undo with the screwdriver. I already broke that, but it doesn't really do any function, so that's actually alright. I mean, you don't need to do it. So basically it's just pulling it out, wiggle and kind of pull out. It's a bit difficult. I need to rotate it a bit to separate it. And that's it. So there is a spring that does this spring action, so that's what's inside. I mean, I have another video here how you can do with a slightly different design. This is a bit different design than what I've had. It's just an upgrade, so it's a different EGR valve, so this doesn't really separate, and this kind of rotates underneath, but no gases really come up here, so you don't really need to take that apart. So I'll really clean that one with a toothbrush, probably just scrape it, not really wash it too much because there is the power there. So that's really the electronic part. So if you want to, I'll show later how to put it together. So I'll be cleaning this one now. So I've cleaned it fairly well. I mean, just with a toothbrush and dry, not really, and then I dry with only slightly a bit of water. I was holding it. I didn't film it, but just nothing really complicated, just to scrape out the carbon. So next thing is really to put it up together. The original EGR valve is slightly different than that one, so this can separate. So you can see my video. I will post a link in the description as well. So this is slightly, it's almost the same design, but not entirely. So there is a sticking part. This sticks, and this sticks upwards. This sticks kind of sideways. So the sideways, I hope it's really visible. So the sideways goes in this groove here. It goes like that in there. The next thing is, I mean, it's fairly the same. So the next thing, it's really, there is a catch here. Let me show it. So there is a catch here, this groove here, that goes on top of that and rotates. So you need to really rotate once you put it inside, and then this needs to be rotated once. So there is a spring action. So when then this rotates, there is a springy action. So basically, so I have to rotate that like that. So get it lined, put it in, and kind of rotate. I can feel rotation, and then once more, and slightly opens. One more, and that's it. So it catches. So there you go. That's the spring action inside. That's what the spring does. This rotation of the pin. So that's how you can do it. I mean, it's trial and error. So basically, you rotate it slightly, and then continue rotation, and then you close it up. Well, that's it. I mean, this is the spring action. Next is really to close it up with the bolts. So that's closed, and then of course one needs to always check this mechanism that's operating. So this is the power, and they're situated like that. I mean, there is no other way that this could rotate, but that's how it is. So how to put it back together? So this is towards the block of the edge, and this is towards the intercooler. So look how shiny it is. I've cleaned it fairly well, and this moves freely, completely freely. There is a bit of water there, but wow, that will be actually alright. It will dry out. So how to put it together? So if you hold it like that, so if you hold it like that, so basically you push it that way and then turn around. So this goes over the bar, turn it around, and when this opens, it goes. So when this puts down, so you turn it around, lock it like that, and this will go towards the top, will be like that, towards the top. When this opens, it will turn it, it will push it down. First of all, to put the gasket on, and you have to be careful that the gasket is in. Next is basically you slide it like that. This is towards the block of the engine, put it on top, then turn it and lock it. That's it. That's done. Then of course the 3 bolts. So if I open it slightly, perhaps to be visible that this is towards this is towards the end. So let me open it slightly. So you see the, perhaps you can see the pin is towards the end, it dropped down. So put it like that on top, slide it into place, and it's perfect. Now when you see it inside, I mean, I'm not too sure it can be seen, but the pin, hopefully it can be seen. The pin is, so basically this rotates it, the pin is up like that, the pin is up, and that's how it should be. And that's it. Now it's the actual bolt. And that's it. EGR valve is pretty clean. As clean as I can get it. Probably in 1 year, next year I'll undo it again. It's probably about the same. It's okay. It's quite clean. I don't think there is any torque for these bolts, or nobody has specified anything, so I'll just do it as much as I can, and then next thing is to really put it back in the car. Next thing is really to put the EGR valve on, so it sticks like that, and then of course it has to go into the intercooler and sticks like that. One, not to forget the gasket that goes like that. Actually, the two bolts go through here, and let me see how this will go. It's a bit difficult to really do with the bolts, but I'll try to hold it like that, and then also the other bolts from the other side, just so they will go through, and then put it in. Actually, try to match the bolts and to go in the intercooler. So it's always a bit fiddly, this thing, and the bolts are a bit sticking. Or perhaps first to go in the, first it has to go into the intercooler, so it's easier not to really to match it then going down. Let's see if this will turn around. Yeah, it turns this bolt. And then the back bolt as well. It basically one has to there we go. So it has to rotate slightly. One has to rotate slightly this aluminium gasket to match the bolts, and then it's basically fitting it. Of course, these bolts, and then the other one as well, which is a bit at the back, but it rotates fairly freely. Yeah. So next is to putting the clamp on that holds the EGR to the intercooler. That's it, that should be actually okay. Trying to position it correctly, and then screwing it on. Let me see, it doesn't move anywhere. Next is the two bolts for the EGR valve. So I'll do 12 Newton meters, so this is really 12 Newton meters, using a torque wrench. That's 12, and then for the back one it's a bit tough really. Because there is not much space. and that's 12. So that's my torque wrench and this little thing. So this really fits in there in between the plastic and that, so 12 Newton meters should be kind of alright. The bolts are not really too big. So I can actually click in the sensor here for the, not the sensor, the EGR valve, the plug for the EGR valve, not to forget. Next is to put the bracket for the filter. Next is the bracket for the filter, and that's pretty easy. Basically you put it on and then the bolts. And for the bolts I also do 10-12 Newton meters, not really that much. I don't need that much, fairly small bolts as well. That's 10. As well, it doesn't move at all. Next thing is to fit the fuel filter in, and I've removed the sensor, so basically the lower plug goes into this bottom hole, but it's just that there is nothing there. And the next thing is just slides on like that, and then it has to be pushed a bit more to kind of click like that, and that's it. It's fairly stable fuel filter. Next thing is the bottom hose, and I've labeled as 2. You have a number 2 on there just to kind of remember which one's which. And this goes on the bottom. It just basically clips in. One just pushes it. If I can slide it in between all these cables. That's it. That's number 2, and number 1. Basically again. Just push it like that, and these are the 2 fuel lines. Next is just to clip in the heater plug. Clicks in, and that's done. Next is the air box. So next thing is the air filter box, and basically I would slide it in, and there are two pins here that basically I put it inside, slightly slanted to the back, and then push it forward, and then goes on these 2 grommets. And so this is really the action. Trying to find exactly where it was. And this is it, slightly backwards and then forwards, and it will clip on. And basically a slight push on both grommets, and that's it, airbox secured. And we have to put the MAF filter, and that's it. The airbox is pretty secure. Next is to remove these, of course, not to forget about these. And next is to put the air pipe on. So this pipe, the air pipe is really just the reverse procedure. Basically, I'll put it in here to click, kind of, and then this to in there, and then basically push it to click. These tabs to click, and this to be fully inside. I'll make sure that this is alright, and then basically tying up this bolt and this bolt here. That's it, so that's secure. Next thing is this pipe that goes down there. So generally I put a zip tie underneath, so because this kind of is a bit flimsy. So here's the tab, so you push it, it goes on that pin here, clips on that side. It's basically a push. Then forgot about this vacuum pipe, so it needs to be clipped. It needs to be clipped there, not to forget. then it's pushing this in, and then the pipe gets clipped on this pipe here, gets clipped on that thing, and then basically we push it that side till it clicks. That's nice and secure. Next thing is that pipe. It's basically the two tabs here, so it's underneath and rotate that direction. So it's fairly easy, or I say fairly easy, but it's not always. So push it and then twist, and that's done. Then this gets clipped in there, and this is nearly everything. So last thing is really, because I've taken the fuel filter out, the last thing is to get the air out of the system and pump this kind of bulb that gets the fuel out, gets the air out of the fuel system. So this is really pumping. I've replaced a new filter, so you have to really pump quite a bit. So it's basically squeezing this until you hear squashing of a fuel. Just easier with so this is the last one, so fuel starts going. You can kind of hear it. I'll pump it a few more times just to get the fuel as much as bubbles as I can. Yeah, bubbles. But this is pretty hard now. And that's it. Check for any fuel leaks, and of course put the cover on top. And that's how we've cleaned the EGR valve. Everything's put back in. So if you really enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like if you like the video, and let me know for any comments in the comment section. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Hope that was really useful. Thank you.